Just a quick note. Please stay till the end of this and future episodes to hear the epilogue of the dramatized portion of the show. Thanks.
In a time of great sadness and corruption, many were deceived and fell prey to the Eye of Illuminot. Knowledge of the realm was covered in darkness. People fell for the schemes of those doing the bidding of the Eye, having over 60% of their crops taken. Those who brought news from down the mainstream of Medea was full of lies that would cause confusion in the hearts and minds of those who sought it out. People shrouded their faces in fear of invisible plague, and men were chopping their dicks off in record number. However, there was a relic thought to be only of myth that was so powerful it would bring healing and peace throughout the land. It was a baseball bat of legend, believed to have the ability to stop the Eye, but like all formulaic stories, ours begins in the most unlikely of places.
Come in.
You summoned me, Elder?
Yes, young man. Please, have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not gonna beat around the bush, young lad. The village has grown tired of your stay here.
I don't understand.
You don't seem to fit in here. We are peaceful people. As a community, we share our joys, sorrow, tears, and laughter.
Yeah, I love to laugh.
Which brings me right to the point and the crux of the matter. You don't seem to know where to draw the line. Everything to you is... in jest.
But that is my contribution to the village.
And you have contributed far more than anyone has asked for. If your jokes were traded in the village, you would have flooded the market and the price has plummeted.
But it's who I am.
Yes, and who you are doesn't fit in here. Do you know what my name is?
Village Elder?
I mean my true name.
No.
My name is Galanoth. The village blacksmith, his name is Rayanor. The cobbler, Valkanor. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, all 3 syllables, all sound badass. And what is your name?
Joe.
Yes, it's Joe.
It's 3 letters.
But it doesn't sound badass. You don't fit in here.
Right.
And enough with the sound effects. I don't know where you got that confounded magic soundbox, but it is played.
The orphanage found it in my swaddling cloth.
I really don't care. It's not that we don't care about you, son. We do. Which is why I'm sending you away.
Sounds real caring.
So you can find your true purpose. You can stay till morning, but I personally love it if you left right now.
Okay, thank
He
you.
really knows how to suck a wiener, fucker.
So after a late lunch the following day, Joe set out to unknown lands to seek out his true purpose, whatever that was. Over hills and valleys, lakes and mountains, Joe recorded many new sounds, met many new faces, annoying the hell out of everyone. Till one evening, just as the sun was setting over the wood elf forest, Joe came across a most interesting character. He had a long beard, a pointed hat that drooped ever so slightly, and a long tie-dyed robe. But what was most interesting of all were the gems and stones of every shape and color levitating and swirling about him as if they were drawn to his presence.
That is amazing.
Ouch!
I've never been able to get them to land softly. Otherwise, it looks cool.
Who are you?
I am the greatest wizard in the realm, according to my stepmom. Gems and stones are my specialty. My name's Ben.
A 3-letter name? My name is Joe.
3-letter names may not sound badass, but they are great for hearing it in a crowd.
What kind of gems do you specialize in?
I have every kind of gem and stone, throughout the land. Each one has its own mystical power for every type of purpose.
That is so cool.
What's your skill, good sir?
My tiny little nipples went to France.
I see. That is hilarious. You think so? Let me see that magic sound box of yours. What is this engraving?
Not sure. It looks like a missing piece, but it's always worked.
Here you go. And guard it with your life. It's part of who you are.
I will. Where are you headed?
I'm seeking out the baseball bat of Allure to retrieve it from the clutches of the Eye of Illuminot and give it to King Tonis.
Isn't that just a myth?
Hey, I just had rocks swirling around me and told you I'm a wizard. Why does everyone always doubt legends in a magical land?
Oh, I thought that was just a myth. Let me hop on my unicorn and get back to the Tree of Destiny before the portal closes.
All myth is rooted in truth, and I will find the bat.
That logic checks out. But why are you out to find it?
Open your eyes, dude. The realm is going to dragon shit. And I believe the only thing that can help stop it is one big, hard, throbbing...
There's that fag talk we talked about.
baseball bat.
And it comes with?
Sure, I don't see why not.
So off the unlikely pair ventured, toward the mountain where the Eye of Illuminot was thought to dwell. Ben showed Joe all he knew about stones and gems. Joe entertained Ben with every sound under the two moons, and Ben laughed all the while.
Bullshit.
Doo-doo, bud.
Ha, 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 ha.
Bitch, I love you.
I think we'll camp here for the night. I'm beat.
Me too. What was that?
I don't know. We should have a look.
Well, it wouldn't be any kind of quest without mysterious noises leading to imminent danger.
Come on.
Joe and Ben snuck around the bend and noticed the dancing of light from a campfire flickering off the rock wall. Just then they both saw it. An 8-foot-tall creature so fugly this narrator simply doesn't want to mention it. In contrast, just beyond the hideous thing, Joe saw the most beautiful woman he had ever laid eyes on, tied to a tree at the mercy of the creature.
Oh no, whatever shall I do? I never thought this would happen to me, being trapped in a cliché.
Okay, so here's our options. We can try to save the girl by risking our lives in the quest that will bring peace and prosperity to the entire realm. Or we don't.
But she's hot.
Huh. Never let it be said I wasn't a solid wingman.
Right on. So what's the plan?
You go over there and create a diversion. Try to get it to walk into that conveniently large unstable boulder. I'll stay here and use my powers to get the boulder to crush it.
Word. Okay, Joe. Time to drop some sound. Anytime, Ben.
Loud noises!
That's it. Just a little closer. Now!
Nice.
Joe, go untie the lady.
Don't mind if I do.
No funny business.
But funny is my business.
Just get me off this tree. Thanks, guys.
You okay?
Of course I'm okay. I have like 10 friends as hot as me, and they've all had the same scenario happen to them with slight variations. If you two hadn't come along, someone else would have.
Wind in sails, gone.
What's your name?
It's Jen.
Another 3-letter name. I'm Joe, and this here is Ben.
All 3-letter names. What are the odds? I'm always getting shit about my name from those bitches Zelina and Sarlotta.
3 of 3 are we, 3 to he, to he.
What the hell was that?
Joe has a magical sound box that brings delight to all who hear it. It's what I do.
Well, could you do it in your own time?
Oh, you want to hear some of those? I've made so many sounds in my own. Jen, may I be so bold as to examine the stone affixed to your necklace?
I suppose. Seems I get a different one every week from some new prince trying to unite the kingdoms, if you know what I mean.
It's exquisite. Of all the stones and gems I have, I've never seen one such as this, and the pattern seems very familiar. Jen, where is it you require to be escorted?
Well, being as hot as I am, I don't have any need for money, land, or food, and I'm pretty bored, so I'm up for whatever.
Want to go with us to seek out the legendary baseball bat?
I thought that was just a legend.
You see? Every time. We are on a quest for the bat to the mountain where the Eye of Illuminot dwells, and bring it to King Anthony.
Sounds like a party.
Jen has joined your party.
And so, after a night of hearty stew over the fire, washed down with a flagon of mead and laughter, the trio set out toward their destination, with absolutely no plan or idea of what they were in for. Before nightfall, they reached the mountain. In front of it was a massive cave entrance with a sign that said, "No trespassing."
We've made it!
This place is pretty spooky.
Yeah, duh. It's an evil lair. Well, we didn't come all this way to stand around. Let's go.
I hope this isn't too much farther.
It's so dark in here. Wait, I can see light up ahead.
Standing in a large circle stood black-robed men and women, each holding a goblet in their hands. In the center of the circle was a large pool of water. Above the pool was none other than the Eye of Illuminot. But the eye was not what our heroes expected.
It's a giant asshole.
This is not what I signed up for. Of course! The Eye of Illuminot isn't an eye at all!
It's a brown eye.
Oh god, it's crowning. That is a lot of shit.
That is seriously gross.
What are those people doing? They're scooping up the shit water in those goblets they're holding. But why?
Shh, they're saying something.
Shit water in hand, each entity in the circle held up their goblets and speaking incantations.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is 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 extremely dangerous to our democracy.
One by one, each of the black-robed figures walked toward the large opening, leading to the outside of the cave. A constant stream of foul, flowing water cascaded down the side of the mountain to the river below.
Oh my god, that river is connected to the mainstream of Medea.
That is what has been poisoning the hearts and minds of people. But what about the bat? Where is it?
Just as Joe asked the question, he saw a lone bat being used to prop open the hatch that allowed the free flow of shit water to exit the cave.
Over there. But why is it being used for something as simple as a wedge? As a mockery. The bat is meant for good. They're using it against the people for evil.
How do we get it?
There is only one way to dispel lies and corruption. What is that? Your true purpose, Joe. Your true purpose. Laughter. You must help us and everyone laugh at the eye and all that serve it. This is the moment you've been destined for.
I believe in you, Joe.
Okay, here I go. You literal asshole.
Hey, what was that?
I think you're just full of shit and it's time to put your lies in context.
Over there. Doo-doo, bud.
They're discovering our disgusting secret.
Not so funny now, is it?
Get them.
It's not working. The lies are too strong.
Whatever shall we do?
Joe, your sound box. Jen, give me your necklace. Now I know why the shape of the stone was so familiar. It's the same shape as the engraving on Joe's sound box. Joe, take the stone and put it in the engraving on the box. Okay, whatever you say.
Joe took Jen's stone and placed it in the engraving of his sound box. The box began to glow and vibrate with a power he had never felt before.
I can't believe it! The stone has become a new button.
What will it do?
Only one way to find out.
Hurry, they're getting closer.
Here goes something.
Because I have a boner.
I ain't really gay.
Give your balls a try.
China. Doo-doo bud.
No, electrical.
Fuck off.
What sort of order she got there?
I kick ass for the Lord.
I love land.
You have a massive
Bombarded by the compilation of sounds from Joe's soundbox, the Eye and his followers burst into flames that smelled of burnt feces.
It's working.
Yeah! Take that, you gayness anus. You did it, Joe. The Eye has been defeated. For now. It's what I do.
Ugh, I'm not gonna get this smell out for weeks.
Joe, you've earned the honor. Go and retrieve the baseball bat of legend.
With a dignified stride, Joe approached the bat, gripping its shaft and pulling hard. Joe freed the bat from its watery prison, causing the hatch to slam shut. The poopy flow was stopped from leaving the mountain.
I've got it. It's more beautiful than I could have imagined. What could it be used for? We must bring it to King Tonis, for only he has been granted the knowledge of the bat's power, lest it fall in the wrong hands.
That bat seems pretty legit, but we have another problem, guys.
What now?
The water.
With nowhere for the water to go, the cave slowly began to fill with the liquid sludge.
Unless anyone in here is a plumber, while also inventing plumbing, we have to leave now.
Run!
Corny laughing hard, guys.
Yeah, figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah. So this is the actual first official, I guess you could say, episode of TruTheater Radio. We are here with our first honorary guest of Legit Bat. And I'll let Josh ask you guys some stuff because he's been a fan of you guys and he's listened to everything. I've listened to some of you guys' stuff, but he's listened to all your stuff. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to even create what I created for the most part. It wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But after getting a feel for what you guys are doing and stuff, what you guys do, we were able to kind of create something I think was pretty funny and special. I mean, quite frankly, I've listened to it thousands of times at this point, and I'm kind of tired of hearing it. but it was fun nonetheless. So why don't you guys just introduce yourselves, even though it's all in the pre-recording, but let you guys introduce yourselves, and we're going to have links to you guys' show on our website and stuff like that so people can get a feel for what you guys are all about, which I think will help people appreciate the actual audio drama that we made a little bit better. So how about you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that, getting a feel for what we do, because we try to get a feel for what we do every show, and it's always different. Every show is different, but how it starts. I'm Joe, by the way. Jen's my wife,
Hi.
co-host, the hot chick from the drama.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Sure.
Ben the
Which
wizard.
is funny because I had no idea what you guys looked like till I was doing the album art.
That's probably for the best.
It's like I'm writing what these people are about. Like I have no idea what they look like. I had to come up with I had to scour the internet, and I was like, I'm just gonna go on Rockfin and do a screenshot, which is basically how I got y'all's pictures out of there. So.
Yeah, no, Google would have worked.
Nice.
I would have said make me taller, Brad Pitt. That works. That's way
Put a hat on you with a fabulous robe.
Just people that have no business doing a video podcast, and for some reason we're doing that, but people seem to watch, so whatever.
Yeah.
But so about what we're about, though, that's a interesting one. I feel like we just told the story probably, but The name is one thing, but the actual show is wildly different. It's not anything close to the name.
Well, that's okay. I'm gonna
stop you right there.
I'm gonna stop you right there. This is kind of what we're about. If people don't know what you're about by now, they need to go listen to your show. We're not going to rehash stuff y'all have already talked about in your show 1,000 times. You know how many times I've listened to your show and you have to tell the whole damn story about the bat thing? I'm like, shut the fuck up. I've heard it 1,000.
Please.
If you didn't know, you should have listened to other shows. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
I always
legit
feel
bat
bad
thing?
though. Like if
We
we're
know
on
it.
someone else's show and they ask us, and because they genuinely don't know. Sometimes, like when we had Crow on, I was like, "Can we talk about this off air?" Like we told this story.
We really don't want to go on Crow 777 and be like, "We're a dick joke," you know. Like we want to be taken a little bit seriously.
He's like, "Why is the bat legit?" I'm like, yeah, "I'll tell you later."
Ask Tony. I mean,
Well, that's actually how I found y'all, because I was subscribed to Crow 777's Telegram, and he just popped up and says, "I'm going to be on the Legit Bad podcast." I'm like, "Well, I like Crows. I'm going to see what he has to say," and I was immediately like, "Oh my god! Finally, a truther podcast that isn't depressing."
Right?
I
no
thought,
I like
I
these
thought
guys.
your story about finding us was going to involve Googling legit bat, which I assumed would come up with some really wild fucking things.
No, it's
Yeah,
just
as long as you have your safe search turned on, it comes up with Legit Bat podcast or the watermelon legit bat. There's a whole brand of legit bats that are different colors. Yeah.
No, keep
super
your safe
unrelated.
search off. I live on the edge. I like to see, like, mature avocado. Look that up sometime, people. Mature avocado.
Have you heard that one? The mature Oh, that was
No.
on Forbidden Knowledge
Yeah,
News.
don't Google it now or if you're at work, but do it in your own time. Do it on your your alone time.
Yeah.
Yeah, or blue waffle, which by the way, now we know everybody who's listening is going to do that. Yeah.
So mature avocado, though, to be fair, all I wanted to see was I grow avocado trees. So I wanted to see what a mature avocado tree looked like. So I Googled mature avocado. I mean,
I can only imagine
There's always
that way.
something for something right there.
there were no trees in the pictures, in the images.
Soon everything's gonna
Only
have an
naive,
ending to it. But
gnarly.
well, I'll just get straight to a few of the things I was going to talk about, because I think I'm not going to have too much as far, because I know my brother has tons of stuff he wants to ask you, because like I said, he's been a big fan. One of the things he wants to ask, he wrote down for some of the questions was, for one, did y'all actually have fun doing the audio drama part of it?
Oh, hell yeah. I've never done
Absolutely.
anything like that. I know Ben had a blast. He gave you guys 3 takes of every line, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
I just read through it once. I think I fucked up one line or something. And then I didn't even listen to it because I'm like, well, it is what it is. And it ended up sounding like me, a very poor actor, and just.
But that's what we wanted.
We wanted that was what made it charming, though. We kind of liked that.
It's hammy. We wanted that hammy feel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
so
it came across great and to describe our show was perfect, because if there's anybody out there who's been following us for any amount of time, it makes sense. That audio drama makes total fucking sense.
Yeah, because I was even thinking like the first scene, which I'll just say off the bat, we are not going to talk about anything past when you guys leave the cave, because it's going to be a spoiler, because that's going to be the prologue of this episode. So we don't want to talk about any of that stuff. They're going to hear that at the end. So everything up until a point where you guys leave the cave, we can talk all about that. But what I was going to say was, well, for one thing, no offense to you two, but Ben knocked it out of the park when it came to his lines. I was like, holy crap, he gave me so much to work with. It was like almost easy.
Yeah, we were laughing. Ben, we were both laughing. We're like, oh my god, Ben is so fucking good at this.
We actually played his 3 takes because Joe had it recorded. Joe and I sat out on the patio after he recorded, and we just listened to his 3 takes of just his 3 lines on full blast on the on the over sound system on our patio.
Yeah, I
it
put
was
you
so
on the
funny.
patio speakers.
Yeah, it was.
We were dying.
Yeah, we thought it was hysterical. I was like, oh man, we've got to see if this guy wants to be on some more. So Ben, thank you. You were great on it.
You will be called later on. You will be called later on.
After listening to it and knowing how I spoke the lines, I was like, oh, so it's hard when you don't have the whole I mean, we had the story right in front of us, but like,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
know.
have the picture in my head until the sound effects and shit were added in. So
I
I'm trying.
know.
I'm like,
It's
how would I
really
inflect this? You know?
Okay,
and,
so
and I will say that on top of that, as far as the learning curve on my end, all of this is a learning curve, even right down to the editing, to the writing. There's so many things I'm going to be doing differently, even in the next episode. Like being able to put in more detail as far as what the sounds are going to be, the atmosphere a little bit, primarily so the people who are reading the lines know what they're doing a little bit better, because I know it's hard. It's easy for me to read the script and have the entire thing going on in my head. And I sometimes forget that the people reading it don't quite have the vision that I have when I'm editing the
we
thing.
talked about that because the little parentheses that would say irreverently, sarcastically,
Yeah.
the adjectives to describe the lines, it not just described the line of the reader, but it described the entire context of that part of the conversation, which means if she's saying something irreverently, that's going to determine how I react in my line. And so we all tried to have that in our heads when we went in there. Since we can talk about up until we leave the cave, can we please talk about the sound effects that you used for the fucking brown eye? Because Jesus goddamn Christ, I could see it in my head.
I found that it was like, that's fucking disgusting.
Was it someone throwing up? Like, what was that? God damn.
Oh yeah, it was freaking foul.
Yeah, it was
loved
pretty
it.
bad. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there might be some people that are like, oh man, why is this their first episode? But hey, you get.
But if you know legit bad podcast, like that's how the first time I think I heard Janet was when y'all were talking about a whole episode about how y'all about how each one of you shit your pants.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a good episode.
Hilarious. Great.
Yeah.
So
Janet told a great story, but anyway.
Yeah.
I will say one other little thing as a little insider to the episode. If anybody, for those that end out listening to it, is the line where he says "Gainus anus." That's Gainus. Gainus is actually the name of our middle school in New Orleans, which is why I put it that way.
Yeah.
So
we went to Gainus Middle School.
Yeah.
No shit. It's a real
Gainus Christian Middle School in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh my god.
So it wasn't just me trying to, wordplay and make two words rhyme.
Well,
it's an actual
funny part is
hilarious. That's like my
particular
favorite line.
That particular line, I read it and I was like, oh, that's really funny. And then I was all, that is going to be the hardest line of my recording because it's really hard to sell that in like a serious, like, fuck you way.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know. That particular line, because it's just those two words. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know how that one's going to come out, because it's like I could say it as pissed off as I could, and I still it ended up being exactly what was necessary, which was, like you said, that hammy kind of retortion. And it was it worked out in the script. I think you guys did a really good job with that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just wanted to add that little insider information because I think it adds to it a little bit. But anyways, my brother's just itching to ask you guys some stuff that he knows that you guys never freaking talk about. So take it away.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So like y'all have a show that, because here's the thing is, in 2020, everybody went crazy, as we know. Everybody went nuts. And I came home. I was actually in Wyoming at the time, and I had this overwhelming need for some reason to go see my brother on Thanksgiving, which I never have that urge. It was just something in some spiritual thing inside me says, I got to go see Jonah on Thanksgiving. And then he's like, and then he just starts dropping all this truther knowledge on me. And I'm like, and so I start having a freaking breakdown. And so
that's saying it lightly.
Saying it, yeah. I wasn't okay with it. And so but then I was like, okay, so I'm like listening to like Crow, I'm listening to like what's the other episode, My Family Thinks I'm Crazy episode, podcast, stuff like that. And then I found y'all through, Crow, and I was like, oh, okay, these are people that can kind of just make light of this insane knowledge drops I'm getting all the time. And so I'm laughing along with you. But what really, and I got to tell you this to you, Ben, I hear this a lot on your show where people will say, you won't think that people want you there. And I'm going to tell you right now, I kept coming back hoping you were on the show. And here's why. But it's gonna be kind of a funny reason, but here's why. Because every once in a while, some kind of truth or knowledge drop, like for instance, when y'all were talking about like astral theology or something like that, and y'all would have these truth or not, and you would have these kind of like mental breakdowns. Like you kind of like lost it. And I'm like you can't
would snap.
Yeah, you just snap, and I'm like, you can't pay for this kind of audio. You can't. This is so genuine. You can't pay for this. It's like I'm watching this guy, and then next thing you know, you're like screaming. I was like, I'm wearing freaking crystals for crying out loud. What the fuck is going on? And I'm like, this is so good. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, hell yeah.
That's why you're the stone. That's why you're Stones and Gems.
That's why it's Stones and Gems. Yeah, that's exactly why we chose that.
That's why you're the wizard
I just
guy.
got it.
You just got it.
You just figured that out. That's why you're the
dude,
Gems
it's a
guy.
fantasy thing. It's wizards and gems. I didn't get the irony there.
Yeah, that's why we chose you to be the Gems wizard guy.
Oh,
you're
wow.
talking about
All right, well,
yeah.
just congratulations on the other mental break. That's good.
yeah. So we're
that's
so I'm like watching, like I'm listening to this, and I'm like, okay, I kind of relate to Ben because I'm like, because we both grew up very Christian, you know,
sure,
and very religious, and to have that kind of that entire world just kind of crumble is very unsettling, you know.
Yeah,
like how do I go about my life? What is right, what is wrong, you know, what is evil? Is evil is the serpent in the Garden of Eden the good guy? You know, it's like it's that kind of stuff. And so my thing is, what I wanted to ask you specifically is, how has this kind of evolution that you've been going through, and this can also be, Joe and Jen, you can answer this as well, because I'd be very curious, because I've watched y'all kind of go through different stages of talking to really interesting guests and then having your mind changed. And so I'm like, how has that affected your day-to-day life? Like even your family life, how do you go about the world? Has that made things more stressful or more interesting? Or have you feel like you found any kind of answers to any questions that you've had? You know, how does that affect your religious life? Whatever, you know?
Yeah, that's you, Ben. Knock it out.
Fuck it. I'm coming. Because I want to answer this as honestly as I can. There's a lot that you just asked in there that is all true, and none of it's true. So the way that I look at it is, the farther I get into answers to my questions, the more questions come up.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
there's
on that one. Same here.
There's a particular center that you find with that. It's almost like the farther you get drawn away from everything you know, the closer you get to what you're supposed to be. But that arena is so much bigger than the one that you were. So like we always talk about, nobody wants to be uncomfortable. They accept lies because at least then they have an answer. That is a narrow road. It's very, very easy to be on that. It's like a horse with blinders. You know, they put it on there so it can stay focused. And in response to the worldview, it's done both. So like when you first asked, you know, family life, how does that change? Well, I don't think her and I in any way, shape, or form would have worked out any other way than what I was going through in my life, the podcast itself, and how her and I got together and what we've talked about. As a matter of fact, 7 months in to the podcast, when her and I first started dating, this whole idea of energies I poo-pooed on for probably the first 4 or 5 months. And I told the story about the energy transfer, and it was a joke about I was, you know, wicked high. And but it was something that completely changed my mind. Well, when you have those, and you mentioned it on the podcast, where I'll have like a live snap. One, I don't hide or lie well. And part of that is having to train myself from that Christian realm where it doesn't matter what you're going through personally. You show up on Sunday, hallelujahs, and it's all fucking fake. Well, in order to really be you, that is stepping outside comfortability, because when you start being yourself, you're going to get judged. And so now you have to get thick skin. And you have to understand that you're going to believe whatever you're going to believe, no matter what anybody thinks. Well, that is something that our parents instilled in us very well. The problem with that is that when you are used to having thick skin for what you believe, changing that belief when you don't care what anyone thinks is extremely difficult. So those snaps of mentality are extremely bothersome, because what it does is you're admitting to yourself that what you thought you knew was just completely off, or in the very least, not what you thought it was. And I in the personal life, it ends up being where I have caught myself over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, that Lene and I have been together, where she'll bring something up and I'm instantly more receptive to it. But the follow-up thought is that my initial response was receptive. So there's almost this double mindfuck where if something gets brought up that I'm receptive to, that maybe I've never heard, or it's out of my wheelhouse, the fact that my initial response is to entertain it is in and of itself a complete mindfuck, because that is never something. I was on this much of a mental road when we started the podcast, and it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier to still in some pillar, have my faith in my Christianity. I was coming on to 30. I was getting sober, but I still held that. And I remember a very specific conversation with her over texting where she said, "What makes you hang on to that still?" And I remember thinking, and I had a response for it, and I 100% believed it. But as that started to turn, it wasn't just that it was turning away from that. It's that all of a sudden that narrow viewpoint isn't just wide open. It's like there isn't a path anymore. You don't know where to go, because the one thing that you thought was leading you isn't just untrue, but it means that when it's untrue, everything else might be. That is a very, very hard thing. But within that unknown is where you start to forge your own path, not the one that has been laid out for you for your entire life. So just to summarize, it's been difficult and also easier. It's been hard, but not hard. The more that I learn, the more I fucking don't know. So that's the best way I can describe it, is the closer I get to feeling like I'm finding truth in my life and in the world, the more that I feel like I'm this big. But it's not a demeaning this big. It doesn't make me feel like shit. It makes me in awe and appreciative that there's so much out there that I didn't know. Joe and Jen and I have all talked about it before. It's like, why can't people admit when they're wrong, be out of pride? It doesn't make sense to me, because when you're wrong and you've been fucking smashing your head against something for so long, doing it the wrong way, and somebody goes, "That's wrong, here's the evidence," why would you not take that as an opportunity to go, "Oh my fucking God, I just learned something. I'm so happy about it. Now I know how to do it the right way."
It's ego. It's the whole ego thing. That's why.
Yeah, the ego hangs on to that.
It's like, to me, it boggles my mind, because although it's hard mentally, it's also easy, because you should know that you are taking steps by accepting something that you were doing wrong the whole time, because now your life can be better. Now you can do it the right way. And that in and of itself, that reception of information that you don't know, and I'm not all the way there. I'm stubborn as fuck. She'll tell you. She'll bring up stuff to me. I'm adamant about it. I put my foot down, and then like 3 days later, I'm like, "Fuck, I was wrong." And
I can back you up on that, Lene. 100%.
So that would be my answer. Sorry if I went on a little long there, but
that's fine. It's exactly kind of what I hear. But I really like what you said about like you're now kind of. I think what you're really trying to say is that you enter into the hero's journey. You're no longer being told what to think, and you now have to weed it out yourself. And I personally have come to what I believe the realization of the truth of the matter is that God's too big to judge me for not knowing anything.
Absolutely.
Like, that's his fault. Like if he wants to let me know all the answers, he'll just come down and tell me.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense.
Well, and we're the
answer
only
to that is,
creatures.
though, dude. You know the answer to that from a Christian perspective is he
Right.
did. It's called the Bible. And
Yeah,
that's-
exactly. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
And what we know now that's just not true.
It's like you have 100 years to figure this out, half of which you're just figuring out how to not essentially
Die.
piss your pants.
Which is
And-
unsuccessful.
We haven't
a
even
lot.
figured it out yet. So.
Yeah.
No, you
and
got
then-
100 years. TikTok, motherfuckers. Figure it out. Thanks,
Yeah.
God. Appreciate it.
And so essentially you go through life thinking that, God has given you this grand opportunity to follow him. And if you can't figure it out, then that's on you. And I'm like, well, for somebody who claims to be eternal and you're giving me this finite existence to follow what you want me to do, then you're basically you're asking the impossible of any human in that regards. But kind of like it was just funny because I'll be straight up when it came to like my religious beliefs. Yeah, I was a true believer. I'm not one of these like, I go to church because I was indoctrinated by it. Everybody could have fell away, and I'd have been the last person to think that I ever would have ever left.
That's
Ever.
exactly what I was talking about, though, is that it's that dogmatic narrow road where no one can turn you away from it. So when that finally happens, something turns you away from it. It is fucking earth-shattering.
Oh, it is.
People
Insane.
that believe it, that are true believers, they are the hardest to convince otherwise because they don't care what anybody thinks. I will never forget probably 7 years ago when Joe, Jen, and I all first started living together. Jen had just moved out here. We used to just sit there and talk. It's what brought the podcast to life years later. Me and Joe, all of us were drinking, and we got in the conversation of this Christianity business. And I told Joe, I said, I still believe in the God of the Bible. I don't necessarily believe that it's all black and white. I agree with my first counselor. It's 10% black and white, and God leaves that 90% gray because he wants to see if our heart's in the right place. And I remember Joe and I having a conversation, and I could tell Joe was really serious about it. And at the end of it, he goes, "You're the only person I'm willing to have these conversations with, because everybody else that believes what you believe, I would get so frustrated that I don't even want to fucking try." And I remember that has stuck into my head because now
It sounds like drunk Joe.
no, it just sounds like somebody who, well, maybe. But it ended up being one of those things where that kind of communication about things that were out of our wheelhouse, like I didn't give a fuck that for the longest period of time, Joe was very open about not being a Christian. It didn't bother me. Even though he was my older brother, I looked up to him and all this stuff. It was still something where I went, I don't really care that he doesn't, believe this anymore. That's okay. That's his journey, and mine is different. And we got along and we talked about these things that we were raised with and that we thought differently. And I think that right there was a large reason why this ended up coming about, was because nobody was going to fucking tell me otherwise. No one. And so when I ended up having hardcore fucking evidence that there was other shit that I had no idea about, whether it be historical with Corey Hughes, whether it be supernatural with Lindsay Sharman, whether it be anything political, every single facet of my life. It's not like somebody said, "You're fucking retarded for not believing this." No, they went, "This is what I believe. This is my evidence. Take of it what you want." They weren't pushy. Every single person on all sides of the aisle that we've been able to have on the show have been the coolest people because they aren't shoving it on us. I've mentioned this before. The idea when you push on someone, their instinct is to go, nope, the more you push, the more I'm going to say fuck you. But the minute somebody drops something on your lap and says, you don't have to believe it, and they walk off, that's free will. That is where you pick it up and you go, fuck, they're giving me an option. Am I going to be stupid for walking away from this and continuing on the exact same path that I've been going down? Or am I going to actually consider this for a minute? The very fact that you're willing to consider it is where your mind blows open, because you're no longer just instantly shutting the doors. And I've said it before, the fact that I'm at a place now where I will entertain just the most wild shit that people come up with is in and of itself the biggest part of this podcast.
Right.
It's funny that you say that too, dude, because somebody was just talking about on our last show about how our guest was just believing this too much. And okay, maybe that's the way he presented it, but I don't want anyone to get the idea that our show is a truth speaking show. I've said this before. We're truth seeking. We're not. I'm not claiming to have answers about anything. I'm interviewing other ideas and other perspectives from people and going, huh, that's interesting. And now you can weigh that for yourself. So it drives me nuts when people, review not that it matters, but or send you an email or whatever. And it's like, the thing this guy said was not true. It's like, okay, I don't give a shit. We're just
move along.
I'm gonna log that away, and then next time something comes around in that general vicinity, I'll bring that up and be like, oh, how does this match up with everything else?
Right.
People want to be polarized right now, though. Like, oh, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say one thing. We're truth seeking, not truth speaking. We don't fucking know, and we don't know any fucking better than anybody else.
Fuck off.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the things. There's some interesting twin dynamics, I guess, between both of us, where we're kind of polar extremes in one way or the other. And when it came to us questioning our entire worldview, everything was kind of, something happened in 2020 specifically. I'd been looking into stuff for a long time, but it wasn't until 2020 when it was like, I literally said to myself, I'm going to look into the deepest, darkest, craziest stuff with no holds barred on anything and just let the chips fall where they may. And I was starting to have crazy opinions altered in ways where I'm like, I can't even have this opinion or I'm going to be considered the bad guy. I mean, it was not just considered the bad guy. It was like I felt like I was turning to the dark side, I guess you could say. It was really kind of weird. But
that's that Christian guilt for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was hardcore. But the thing is that with me, I actually got to a place where I'm just like, oh, thank God I don't know everything. It's like the fact that I don't know everything has been very, very comfortable for me.
It's very humbling.
For him,
too.
It was like complete total meltdown. I mean, he can have. It was like I was like,
that's why I liked listening to you, Ben. I was like, oh, I know how that guy's feeling right now. I got that feeling. I know it.
Yeah.
I had a hard time admitting it when we had on the Hatter and we had just gotten back from Mount Shasta.
Oh, he's great. I want to have him on.
Oh, he's brilliant. And we actually, awesome. I don't know, we ended up being able to go and actually spend a day with him up in Mount Shasta on his travels in the United States. Awesome. And it was awesome. And the first time we had him on, we had just gotten back from Mount Shasta where I just bought my first crystals. I felt like a fucking tard because I'm like, oh my God, I'm buying these fucking rocks for $8.
Yeah.
I'm going to start wearing them around my goddamn neck. And then after we got on the podcast and without me saying shit, without anybody knowing when we went up there, crystals were the first things that started getting talked about. And that's when I brought it up. I'm all, I just fucking bought mine today. And everybody was like, synchronicity, you fuck. And I'm like, dude, you have to understand. I didn't even believe in synchronicities a year ago.
Yeah. Not to mention people treat you a lot better at Whole Foods. Am I right?
We don't have one of those here. We're poor.
Oh man. Well, when you go, it'll be like you'll get top-notch customer service. You just wear some crystals at Whole Foods, all of a sudden you're like,
does that count?
I'm sorry,
Sprouts
but
counts too.
you can't wear anything with an American flag and camo
don't
into
wear
Whole Foods and them not treat you like you're packing a gun.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
you definitely look really confusing. Like this, he's got freaking crystals and shit. He's got American flags. What the hell's going on with this dude?
I've said it before. I'm like a city boy at heart with a shitload of redneck tendencies.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but it's like, can I tell you all my my funny crystal story that
Yes.
actually just happened this year during Mardi Gras? I was in like we're from New Orleans, you know. So I actually went back to go visit family, and it was during Mardi Gras. And the further south you get, the further darker it gets, if you know what I'm saying. You know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to go through TSA and all these things, and I'm like, oh my God, black women are the bane of my freaking existence. They're always at the TSA, and they always want to make your freaking life a living hell. And so I'm like, but I go to this this bar on St. Charles Avenue, which is pretty much where the main parades always happen in New Orleans. And it was this bar called Lucky's, and I'm standing outside standing on the porch, having a cigarette and having a drink. And this extremely kind, large black woman walks up to me, and she says, "This is for you." I don't know why. And she hands me this amethyst crystal. And this amethyst crystal necklace. And what was interesting about that was because I actually went to New Orleans. I said, when I go to New Orleans, I'm going to buy an amethyst crystal because I was reading about the amethyst property. And she just walks up and just gives it to me. I still have it. It's this gorgeous, massive crystal necklace. And then she's like, "My name's April. This is for you." And I'm like, "That's my mother's name, who just passed away." And I was like, it was the wildest freaking thing. And another thing was, while we parked, I was with my friends, and they who also are kind of like are pretty into the synchronicities and stuff thing. They both have a tattoo on their arm that says 1111, right? They're I think they're engaged, but they both have a tattoo that says 1111. And then we parked the vehicle, and right where we parked, it was at this address and we couldn't even see the address, but it was under a canopy, and I walked there and it just said 1111, you know. And then I'm getting an amethyst crystal from a large black woman. I'm like, God has a freaking sense of humor, because I've just been ripping on fat black chicks all day.
That is definitely something that will break your brain.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, it was wild, man. It was wild.
It make me so weird and giddy and happy.
Yeah, that. I like your attitude. I like your attitude.
It's like it's yay. I'm weird. Sorry.
Yeah. So
well, Jen, did you want to answer his original question?
What was even the original question? Sorry, y'all went
the
off.
original question is basically the original question is because since I've listened to y'all's show, and I've just watched this, this is what I love about your show. It's like you feel like and I think I might have told this to Joe before, but it's like when you listen to the show, you feel like you're hanging out with like friends, drinking beers, and just talking about the wildest shit you can possibly think of, and just like you feel like this is a fun conversation and you want to do this again. That's what the show feels like. But then when I'm listening to it, I've also watched a lot of evolution of how y'all have grown from. It started off it still is a goofy show, but then at the same time, y'all have also had these moments of these aha moments that you might even these moments of clarity, and it's like you're kind of slowly evolving. And I know that also by your guests that you have on, and you have you keep asking these really great questions, things that you would never have asked when you first started the show, because you wouldn't even had a point of reference. You wouldn't even know how to ask that question because it wouldn't even have been in your thought process, you know? And so I was basically just asking Ben, and mostly asked Ben to begin with, because I was so curious, because no one's ever brought it up, like been having these mental breaks on the freaking show, which I thought was hilarious. And I was like, this is so freaking radio gold. You can't buy this. And so I was like, I wanted to know, like, how has your show kind of helped you to grow as people, you know?
No, this one's on you. You've been very quiet. Go ahead.
You have been quiet, Jen. It's your turn. You need to talk. That's another thing, Jen. I'm going to tell you something right now. You need to listen to me. You need to stop apologizing. Stop apologizing for talking. You do that a lot on your show. Stop doing it. It's really annoying because it's like, Jen, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking. It's your freaking podcast. Talk. I want to.
Yeah, you know why? Because it's a male-dominated industry, and I'm not even a feminist at all. Anyway, no, that's totally true. And I have been shushed by so many dudes on our show. You wouldn't even know.
Well, I'm sorry for shushing you.
100%. I get shushed and talked over all the time to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to shut up and sit here. In the very beginning of our show, I actually bounced halfway through the show a couple times. And you wouldn't know if you didn't watch the audio, but I would be talking and someone would just bombard over me. And I would be like, oh, okay, well, no one cares. So I would leave. And so my evolution is where I learned to come back and just sit and listen. And that happens often now. So I'm sorry if I say sorry, but it just, that's where I'm like, okay, I just have to sit down and listen. It's interesting information. But if I ask a question, I've been told in the chat I'm the dumbest person someone's ever heard, and then they tipped us $20, and then yeah, that's a real thing that happened.
Hey, you can call me dumb all day. You can tip me $20 all day. I'll let you call me stupid all day. You can
sure. Yeah, it's because we were talking about star forts. Sorry, but that's not real history. I mean, it could be, but fucking who cares? And I said, hey, maybe we're a science project in the back of a 5th grade alien classroom. And someone said, wow, that's the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard. And then they tipped us $20. So I just get shit on left and right. So sorry, not sorry. I guess I don't know.
The only reason I bring that up is because I think you're fantastic. I think you're fantastic. You have an amazing radio voice. Because I never even watch y'all. Like, this is pretty much the only time I've ever looked at y'all's faces.
Well, we don't really watch podcasts.
We don't watch
anyways.
podcasts.
It's kind of stupid.
We don't either. To be fair, we listen.
I actually love that you said that on your first show about what are you all doing watching people's fucking faces talk. I get that. So I think most people, especially with our show, we don't really have a whole lot of visual shit besides their dumb heads. So I think most people turn it on as like the radio. They're not actually sitting there watching our mouths move. Some people are.
When we did Planet Retard, we have the Planet Retard report that I don't know if you guys have ever watched or listened to, but we bring up articles that are the dumbest articles we've ever seen at 5:00 on Sunday Pacific time. We haven't done it in a few months though, because summer's been.
Those are a lot of fun. I remember y'all doing those. Are a lot of fun. I really appreciate.
We'll have to get going again in the winter.
That's good because it's so great. Like, y'all pull up some I'm like, is this really in the freaking news? And it's so insane. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Probably written by AI, but yeah, it was in the news.
Yeah, it's true.
Probably written by AI. That's my token phrase.
I would like to say something to Jen's credit. As a result of all of these mind-bending things, I would say that in different ways, Jen has kind of been the rock of mentality in a lot of ways to our show, because she has always kind of thought outside the box on a lot of these issues. I know that when I first started on the show, some of the things that she would say, I audibly and would verbally on the show say, see, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I know. Jen and I have a long history of butting heads from the moment that we met.
We have more in common than we don't. I will say that. And
that I will say that this podcast and everything that we've talked about has, in a lot of ways, it's in not just Jen and I's thought process is very similar, and that thought process, but different belief systems, can sometimes come to a head. But now, along with 2 years of doing this, and no offense, always thinking Jen was a little out there on the alien shit and all of this, like traveling to dimensions and stuff, when we started, again, Narrow Path, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking so stupid, but I'll talk about it. Yeah, fuck it. And then as things started to change, I went, you know, she hasn't strayed too far. Not saying she hasn't grown, not saying she hasn't changed her view on certain things. I would never take that away from her. But I will say that a lot of what she already believed walking into this has now been something that I go, okay, actually, I see that. And there is a certain part of that groundedness in the supernatural. When we first talked to Lindsay Sharman, and when we first talked to a lot of the guests that really delved into the supernatural, which for me, I don't have dick to contribute. She always led with the questions. She was always very interested in their work. She knew a lot about it. Joe has his forte in that, in different arenas of that nature as well. And so on a lot of those, I would sit back and not have a lot to contribute because I didn't. It's exactly what you said. You don't even have a frame of reference to ask certain questions. And so for a lot of the things now that I've had an open mind to, and again, Lene has been a big part of this in my home life off air, is like, it all echoes a lot of the same stuff that now I'm finally being able to see. And to Jen's credit, there is a lot of that supernatural part of our show that we talk about that has kind of been a bedrock for those categories that now looking at it, I'm like, okay, I actually see what she's talking about. Whereas before, I wouldn't have entertained it for a hot minute.
I don't know. I think you would have. You entertained stuff. So our show started as us trying. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard it a million times, but our show started as us just sitting around shooting the shit. And then we were like, hey, let's record this, which we did a couple of times. And it turned out terrible. It was not any sort of listening material whatsoever. We were our worst selves. And then when we first started the show, we were just drunk and stupid. I mean, we were just we had no frame of reference, like Ben was saying. We weren't really listening to shows. We kind of were, but we didn't really care or think about what the listener was going to hear. We were just like, let's be ourselves and talk about whatever, we would just talk over each other. There'd be sounds in the background. We'd be like, whatever. Like there was no care for what was going to be put out there. And then as Joe listened to it and told Ben and I, and then we listened to it, we're like, oh yeah, we should probably be a little more careful. And then we kind of grew into being, and I hate to say it because it was like we learned from our mistakes and we got to be better at producing a better show because we're like, we handled constructive criticism pretty well from people in the chat who would say like your audio sucks or your internet's going out or your video's going out or this is stupid. And we're like, all right. And we kind of adapted that way too, a little bit. I mean, we grew and learned, but we also listened to our listeners.
Right. I definitely, it's one of those things I've kind of almost had to mentally set myself up for some mad criticism, which I really have to tap into my inner not giving a fuck about stuff, especially because because I can talk about stuff and people can disagree about what I say and things. I will say by no means do I would I like even put down anything that I've written, because I haven't done a lot of writing, but I have done writing in the past. And, you always show it to the people, and they're like, oh, it's so great and all that kind of thing. Well, it's like, you're not sending it out to the entire world and everybody's going to have our first episode out there and be like, unsubscribed. I mean, this is terrible. I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess it's not for you.
Those people.
That's going to happen. So that's going to happen. People are going to hate on you and they're going to be assholes. Joe and I were just talking about this today. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to OBDM podcast, Our Big Dumb Mouths. It's a great show. And they were reading their 1-star reviews today, or even 3 or 4 stars, but they were very critical, shitty reviews. And we were just talking and I was thinking, how selfish and self-serving can you be to be annoyed with something and then to say, you should discontinue doing this because it annoys me. Gross. So that's the attitude that I have tried to take with it. Like, I'm sorry that it annoys you, but you're not that cool. So fuck yourself. Why don't you go eat shit while I continue to do what I'm doing?
Well, there's like
it's the same thing though.
There's 2.5 million podcasts and they're taking the time out of their day to go on there and talk shit on, like, change the channel. It's like the radio. You can go pick a different show. Like, why are you taking time to do this?
Right. So when you guys get shitty reviews, because I'm sure you will. And it's not because your show's bad, because I think it's amazing. I think you
No, it's
guys
just
have a
because there's shitty
solid,
people out there.
amazing. Yeah, I think you guys are going to blow up. Personally, I couldn't say enough about how fantastic of an idea this was. But people are going to hate just because they want to. And you have to think of what kind of person. You have to stop for a minute, go into a different person who sucks, go into the brain of a person who sucks at life, and picture how that would be. Imagine just thinking everything's awful and I just want to hate on people. That's their life. Don't feel bad for them, because fuck them, but that's their life. Their life is just all about sucking.
Oh yeah, we say it all the time. It's like, well, they're the ones that have to live with themselves. I mean,
Right,
I don't I have to put up with them for 2 seconds. They have to be with themselves 24/7, you know. And it's like,
Well, what you got to understand too is that for every person that takes the time out of their fucking day to leave an actual comment, you have to understand that everybody in their life thinks they suck. And so here I am 2 years later, and I'm still chewing hands live on the air. And fuck Jared. That's all I got to say.
I mean, even last night, Ben, we did get a comment that asked if you even had any fingers left.
Yeah, and then the show before that, somebody was like, please stop eating your fingernails. Like, I can't control everything. I could turn his camera off, but I don't know what to do.
We're an audio only show. You can chew your freaking fins all you want.
Yeah, exactly.
But I even said there were 4 little thumbnails on the screen, 3 or 4. I can't remember how many people we had on, but 3 or 4 thumbnails. If giggity, but if you don't want to look at Ben chewing his fingers, you can look at anything else. You can look at us. You can look at anything in your room. You can look at literally anything, or turn the video off. Stop fucking staring at it and then bitching.
I
about
recommend
it.
looking at Biden while you listen to anything.
There you go.
Just look at his face. You know that all you have to do is know that your country is in his hands and that you'll be fine.
Where's your home?
Are you in Oregon?
Are you in Oregon?
Yeah.
People are so selfish and they want to just talk about how they feel all the damn time. Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Joe, what's something that has not necessarily broken your brain, because not everybody has to deal with that, but what's something that maybe your mind has expanded on or changed since we did the podcast, started it?
A lot of stuff. I don't know if I could narrow it down to one thing, but everything we talk about, it's like new and exciting, because it's like, I don't fucking know. Like, I grew up like these guys. Man was created 6,000 years ago by a God that loves you, but will also tell you to fuck off if you don't follow him. And 6,000 years later, here we are. We're going to be in the end times. Jesus is going to come back, and so anything outside of that is amazing, because I'm like, yeah.
It's a great answer. I love it.
Which is more than likely why he's so happy every time he has a poop story, because he's like, I'm sorry, but that wasn't in the Bible, and that was awesome. You guys should come look and hear all about it. So what's another question, Josh? I know you got more for us.
Well, mostly that's kind of what I majority of what I wanted, the idea, and y'all hit on a lot of things that I wanted to know about. Yeah, that's the crux, because it's more like it's kind of like, because when you listen to these other, like when you listen to Crow, he has this like kind of like voice and this tone of like, I know more than you.
Yeah, it's very educating,
and you're like, and you totally believe him. He probably does know more than me, and so I'm like, okay, well, and he's like super calm about it. Or you'll listen to some other truther podcasts, and they're like, the world's burning, everything's gonna fall apart, we're all gonna die, and it's like, I've heard doomsday nonsense since Y2K, and it's been going on every freaking year, and every year you prepare for something, and then you're like, you know what? I'm just don't care anymore. If it's like I just done, but it's like the oddest thing is that now that we are in a sort of really lame, annoying apocalypse, if you will, is that now is like I'm actually not prepping anymore. Like now that I'm in it, I'm like, you know what? I think the biggest prepping is just to have fun and like live life and enjoy it. And so that's why when I heard your show for the first time, I was like, these, like, I can get behind these kind of people. Like, we're living in the most ridiculous time, and these people have the ability to stare it in the face and laugh at it. And I love that. It was so good. It was really good stuff. And so that's why I was, but I wanted to ask, like, because it clearly y'all didn't just wake up one time and then just get involved in the truther community, because you don't just get Crow on the freaking line without having some kind of questions on your own. And so that's kind of where I wanted to figure out, like, okay, they start off this really entertaining show. It's not like y'all, because you tell me that y'all just were like bullshitting in a basement, but at the same time I'm like, there's something else there. I want to know what else is there. That's like, what would have made y'all even say, okay, we're not only going to have a podcast, but we're going to have the most interesting guests on almost off the bat. Like, it's interesting. Like, I don't understand how that happened. I know Joe did that.
All Joe.
I know that Joe did that, but that's what I want to ask you is, like, how did you even know how to contact Crow? It's like, you must have listened to him before.
Oh, well, no, yeah. No, I listened to all these shows. Crow, I've tried to get Greg Carlwood on.
Greg Carlwood's great. Yeah.
But no, so it was literally, I tell everybody this, it was literally, I sent an email or a DM on Facebook or something, and people just got back to me. The first one was Charlie Robinson. We actually got to hang out with him. I'm sure you've heard that, but
yeah,
I literally found him on Facebook, sent him a DM, and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll come on your show. I'm like, are you serious? We have one episode out. Like, that's awesome. So I just continued that strategy until this day. Somebody I hear on somebody else's show, I'm like, let me reach out to them, see if it, and sometimes it takes a bit of digging. I got to talk to other podcasting friends and be like, hey, do you have this guy's email? Or, so it's all kind of we always call it a cross-pollination. There's so much of that in this community where someone's like, oh, I know this guy, this would be a great show for you guys to do. I've had that happen a bunch too. Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy has sent me links like, hey, you'd probably like to have this guy on. Just sends me a link to his email or whatever. So that's it. Just asking. It's crazy how easy
having
it is.
no ego. Joe has no ego. He has no voice inside of his head that says, you shouldn't do this. You're not good enough.
Oh, that's true.
He literally doesn't have that. And I'm not even saying it in jest. It's true. Because
I do not
he was
have
like,
that voice that says you shouldn't do this. I just do it.
No, but I'm but in the best way, obviously, is what I mean. He's not afraid to do anything. He's reached out to crazy people and been like, hey, do you want to come on the show? And then he'll be like, hey, we're having David Icke on. I'm like, what? How did you reach out to him? And he's like, I just emailed him.
To be fair,
what? Like, how did you find him? Are you serious?
6 months to actually nail down that date. It sucks.
Because of the time change, the time difference. That's fine. But it's not like he was blowing you off. He just responded because of you were so genuine in your email, and maybe they vetted us a little bit and saw people we had on. But the people that Joe would reach out to, like Terry Lovelace, who wrote the incident at the Devil's Den that we heard on Mysterious Universe, he reached out to him immediately and then had him on a couple weeks later. And I was like, holy shit, I've read his book. I love this. And that just happened week after week after week after week because Joe was just diligent with it and didn't care about the result. If someone told Joe to fuck off, he would be like, okay, whatever, I don't care. But whereas Ben and I would be like, okay, well,
fuck off, lame. Can do.
Fuck right, off. Exactly. Yeah. So Joe has the best mindset for going into this. He was like, I want to start a podcast. And Ben and I were like, okay, whatever, we don't care. Joe went balls to the wall with it and we supported him, but in kind of the least supportive way. We didn't really do anything at all except sit there.
And the thing to add to that is that's exactly why Joe's the one that runs the socials, because if me and Jen were the ones reading the comments and responding, I have a feeling we would have a lot more. Yeah, we would have a lot more people hating our guts because I would not be nice at all.
Me either. But and Joe's like, hey man, cheers.
Joe's like, oh, thank you for your response there, bud. What's your podcast name? And we'll give it a listen. And it'll be just like the worst fucking review. And I'm like, oh, I would have said something way different.
Yeah, people will be like, your audio sucks. It's in the tank. And Joe's like, oh, what's the name of your podcast? Could you tell me what your audio issues are and how you resolve them?
Tell me
and
about
I'd be
your
happy
setup.
to hear
Let
it.
me tell you about,
and they're like, zoop, ghost.
Now, so you guys are going to run into this on Instagram. I know you just started your Instagram, but that drags out the fucking weirdos. Let me tell you. you will have to deal with people that will talk mad shit, and you go to their profile and they have 0 followers, 0 posts, and they're following nobody. So like, where the fuck did that come from? They just popped into a random, like, it's gonna be fun. Let me know.
Actually, that's a conspiracy theory that I actually have. Like, you talk about all these podcasts. Like, you'll open up a podcast app and there all these podcasts on there, and you're just like, it's like 2 girls having tea, and you're like, what? Like, what? Like, I don't. My conspiracy. I don't think that 80% of those podcasts are real.
No,
I think
2 girls
we're real.
How about no?
I don't.
Not listening to that.
Nobody's listening to that.
Yeah,
Nobody's listening to any of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
you go and look at you go and open your podcast app, and you've got like 100 different, pre-selected recommended podcasts. And I'm like, who in their right mind would ever even click on this, much less subscribe and listen on a weekly basis to? I don't even understand why anybody would even waste their time
about our show. I'm like, who the fuck is clicking on this and choosing to listen to stories about how we shit our pants? Like,
but that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that your show's actually good. Your show's actually good. It's like their shows suck. It's like listening to two gender confused chicks talk about freaking tea and how much Trump sucks. Like, it's that nobody's listening to that. Nobody's listening.
I would listen to that for Planet Retard, though. If that's a real show, I will put that content out there on Sunday at 5 someday.
Well, and there is something to be said about that too. Like, when he told me that we had, like, these are 2 instances, 3 actually. When he told me that we had Tommy Chong, David Icke, and Craig the Sawman Sawyer, I had as big of a boner as I could get. But the thing is that we ended up finding
I loved your Tommy Chong episode. Yeah.
Oh, it was fucking brilliant. I took
great. That was a great episode.
Handful of mushies right before that show. And the part of it was like, we ended up around that time, we had on Dustin Potter, shout out to Dusty, and Spicy Wiener. Was it Carlos, right?
Well, Corey is his real name.
Oh, Corey, right. So we had them on shortly after that. And I remember Corey ends up saying, he goes, I'm completely, or he said this in our Discord chat back when we had Discord, is that he goes, I'm like completely starstruck that I'm actually having a conversation with you guys. All of us were like, you're starstruck? Like, really? Are you fucking kidding me? But then I thought in introspectively, I'm like, but that's how I felt when we had on certain guests. And they probably think in a lot of ways the same thing. People are still starstruck to fucking talk to us. It's like, it kind of starts, it goes in that succession where you'll talk to somebody and be like, I cannot believe that we just got to have a fucking hour-long conversation with this person. And then a lot of the people that listen to us, they're thinking the same thing when they have a conversation with us. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling to talk to people that you're a fan of, and then also talk to people that are fans of you. That's a whole different mind fuck to be able to experience, because as normal people who just work regular jobs, and we get on here and we talk shit and we make dick jokes and fart noises and all this stuff, and then people talk to us and they're stupid excited to talk to us. It's like, awesome. Like, I'm happy for you. We're just us. We don't see this, the specialness there. But then when you actually think about it in the other direction, it makes perfect sense. And so there's kind of like this humbling experience where it's like, we're appreciative for everybody that listens to us, everybody that wants to come and talk to us, because although there isn't this self-deprecating, oh, we're not worth talking to, at the same time, there's this like, fucking cool. I can't believe we landed that. That's fucking awesome. So you're going to find that as well, where you'll have these people commenting on how great your show is. And then when you interact with them, they're like, they replied to my comment. And you're like, yeah, it's a comment. I'm on Instagram. No big deal. Like, but it makes their fucking day, man.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I felt a little bit like that because, it's one of those things, you put this thing out for the first time. We put out our first episode, and I'm just waiting for anybody to even watch the thing once.
We did the same shit.
Tell me the thing sucks. I don't care. I just want somebody to know that's a real person actually listened to the damn thing. Right. Not so much that it's just like some bots out there clicking it to make sure that they can sell me something. So I'm just waiting for anybody to have some kind of opinion on it, and which kind of leads me a little bit into more just kind of changing gears a little bit. Going into, well, I'll just ask, you guys are willing to do this again, right? The audio stuff. Okay, well that's good to hear, because we're I would say at the point of, and it'll change eventually, but for right now we're at the point of we really need more people doing this, because it's a lot. While I love doing it, it's especially the editing stuff. I mean, it's a blast, but it's only a blast for the first 3 or 4 days, and then you're like, I really need this to be done now. But we really need more people, and that's what I was saying. As far, we're saying it again on this show, anybody who wants to be a part of this, and we're looking for anybody. We're looking for writers, we're looking for sound guys, we're looking for a lot of different actors. We're looking for anybody who wants to contribute to this a lot. And one of the big things I learned is I suck at dealing with levels when it comes to audio. It's like some things are too quiet, some things are too loud, some things are clipping, peaking, whatever. And I'm just like, I can't handle this. I can edit all day long, but it was just finding out what was too loud or too quiet, and it was just driving me absolutely off the wall. But
well, Jonah, we really appreciate, one, the opportunity, but two, all of the time that you took to put into this, because I'll tell you right now, getting in front of a microphone and recording, that's what we do. So that was easy for us. We just fucking made an audio. Joe just clipped an audio file. He literally sat me down and goes, press this button, and then when you're done, press that same button again, and I'll send it to him. And I went, okay.
That was my layman's editing for it, that was my layman's. I was like, I set up all the mixer and everything. You're fine. Just talking to this microphone. And he's like, 25 minutes later,
I know.
His file was like 3 times the size of me and Jen.
Right.
I came out, I'm like, I think I recorded one line twice, and then I kind of shot the shit a little bit just to nobody, and then I'm done, because I said it exactly how I would. I know maybe it wasn't like full on, like exactly what you wanted, but it's exactly how I would have said it in that exact.
It was great. I mean, it was great the way
it in my
you
head.
did it, though.
But I
It's
will say,
exactly
Jonah, do you think that, so we listened to that episode as well. We listened to the first episode you guys did 2 or 3 times. And then we listened to the one we did once, and then we played it for Lene and Ben when they came over afterwards. So I don't know if you're maybe beating yourself up because you're so used to doing this that you hear all of those little like nuances. Like you're like, oh, the levels aren't perfect right here. Nobody's gonna fucking notice that unless they're also a sound guy and they or girl, whatever, but they might notice. But at the end of the day, it's going to sound fantastic. There was nothing that was weird or sounded off.
Right.
There was nothing noticeable to the layman like us.
That's why I know there's no sound engineers listening to our show, because I would have heard from them by now.
Yeah, we do hear from them on a regular basis.
No,
they're like,
one
you sound
English
like
dude
shit.
that was like, "Yes, Mike sucks." I'm like,
Your
I don't
guest
have any
mic-
control over that.
That was the best when the guests might. I found that guy, by the way. His image on Facebook was butterflies, and I tried to friend request him, and he wouldn't accept my friend request.
But yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because it is one of those things when you're trying to make this kind of thing, you tend to get really picky about stuff. And there's I guarantee you there's little sounds and nuances that I guarantee there's things that most people didn't even pick up on that I put in there specifically for a reason, and most people aren't even going to notice it. Like, I would just give you, for instance, like, do you know? Well, I'll have to tell you off the air because it's part of the epilogue.
Oh.
But there's one specific part in there that it's so subtle that unless you're paying attention for it, you probably won't even notice it. But
we might not have, because we listened to it outside without headphones on. But I will say, when we listened, all of the music, the way it sounded like this festival sometimes, or just
like a
all of the
Renaissance
sound
fair.
effects. Yeah, but it was absolutely fantastic. It was something that I wasn't even picturing in my head, and Ben and I had the same idea. Like we had this whole idea of this Final Fantasy drop. Kudos to you, because that was amazing.
Jen has joined your party.
Yeah. I
Dude,
thought that was a nice little touch there.
Yeah.
That was
you're
brilliant.
always going to be your own worst critic too, and I know this from I
Yeah.
haven't done it in a while, but I used to like write music and make music and shit, and every little thing I'd put in there, I'm like, this is going to really spice up this measure. Literally nobody would ever hear that. So
Right.
it's all for you. Like, just focus on what you think sounds good, and everyone else will either shit on it or love it. It doesn't really matter.
And
letting
let it-
your ego go a little bit.
and let it
Yeah,
be
it's good.
organic. Don't let it, like, it was one of the thoughts that popped in my head when you were like, I just want to know that somebody real and isn't a bot is just even listening to our show. I don't care if it's a shitty review or not. It's like, here's the thing, and this might be a helpful hint. Don't hope. Start putting out the fucking content. Don't give a fuck if people are listening, and they will come. It's
true, Ben.
it's
That's
exactly
very
what it is.
fair. That's what we did.
Yeah, you just start creating. When we first started this, I had a $35 Turtle Beach headset on with no fucking camera other than the one that was on my shitty laptop, which I now can't use. I'm using her awesome Apple computer because mine took a shit. So we didn't have anything. Like, we were trying to figure out any kind of mic situation, sound deadeners. I was fucking doing it in a laundry room that had a horrible echo, so I was hanging up blankets and shit. Like, we gave a fuck because we had the same thing. We're like, I wonder if anyone's actually going to listen to this. Like, there was kind of like this hope, but at the same time, it was like, but that's not why we did it. We did it
not in the moment.
We did it for us. You asked, like, like, what made you even just want to do a podcast? It was literally, we wanted to have a monologue of the crazy conversations that we had been having for years. That we've said it before, that fire pit talk. It's, and of course we had to start it right after I stopped drinking. That would have been a whole different show if I was. But it's one of those, we just wanted to go back and be like, oh, what was that one thing that we talked about? And actually have a log of us talking to people and talking about this shit that we had already been talking about for years, never recorded. It was always off the cuff. It was personal. Why not talk about that? And if somebody listens to it and gets anything out of it, great. If they don't listen, great. Don't give a fuck. So when you're creating stuff, do it to whatever makes you sound good. Do it off the fly. Do it on the first take that you're like, you know what? I think that'll work. And then move on to the next one. Don't be overcritical. Put it out there and go, all right, on to the next project. Fuck it. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself fucking crazy.
So that's awesome advice, because it's like, it really is more like, we are doing this because we have really a passion for kind of asking heavy questions, but we've also really been in radio drama for our whole lives, as you might have heard from the first episode. But our main focus is not just to put out necessarily great content, because it can be hammy, it can be goofy, it can be whatever. Yeah. But it can also be serious, it can be dramatic. We're not just going to be a comedy show. We're not going to make comedy radio drama. But what I think our main focus is that this community is a very niche one. It's not very big, and most of us, we know that most of us can't even really watch TV anymore without turning the TV upside down. It's like, oh, look, it says 9/11, Satan, hail Satan. It's like, we're like looking at every single thing that pumps out of the TV. And so we're like, we need to have something that's like something that it's like, so we need to have our own kind of form of entertainment that doesn't necessarily have an agenda, but also can bring people together, like where other people can get involved in it. Whereas, like, because like you said, we're not looking for this to be Joshua and Jonah's TruTheater radio show. We want this to be the community to be like, hey, what you got?
We want people to have a creative outlet for something, like anything in regards to this. We primarily picked audio drama because that's what we love. We love it. We've listened to our whole lives, and just the idea of making something was like,
well, you
super
guys are
freaking fun.
you guys are doing the same thing that we're doing. It's just a different take on it. For instance, instead of asking the serious questions and having a question about it with Joe's dick joke and sound drops in it, what you guys are doing is you guys are creating an audio drama about very real things. The mainstream of Medea. Okay. Everything that you guys had. See, that's the thing. You guys are talking about real shit. You guys are making it hammy and funny. So it's a different take on the exact same thing. You guys are talking about real issues, heavy shit, but you guys are laughing about it and kind of making a mockery about it, which is that's right up our alley. We just do it in a different way. And that should be how it is. You guys are doing it in a different way. And I think if you guys don't be too critical and just go, you know what, we're going to keep doing this, I think people will latch onto it, because then when they're riding in their car and they have a 45-minute audio drama or an hour and a half long audio drama about something that is a real topic and a serious topic, but you're just fucking making fun of it the whole time, that's gold.
Right. And that leads me on a totally in relation to that. I wanted to mention this and ask you guys if it was something that you had noticed, but because there's lots of people in this community who will get the joke right off the bat, but some people might not. And did you, when the cult leaders are doing their incantations, do you know what that's from? When they're saying this is extremely dangerous to our democracy?
Yeah, it's from this news clips of when the news says the same exact thing across the globe.
I'm just saying there's might be some people who listen to this episode or yours that are going to hear that and they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, go look up online.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah, look up on BitChute, try and find the clip, and it's basically a compilation of all these news broadcasts saying verbatim the exact same thing.
I think that's and then actually what
nails and it shows them all at the same time. Yeah.
I think that's what clues people in to that audio drama, is the fact that you can be listening to this kind of catty, almost dry wit British humor. And then when you hit that part, it's the most important part of the show. It's the zenith of the show where the shit breaks down and you're confronting the bad stuff. And those sound drops, if you're not getting the mainstream of Medea up until that point, that is the part that clues you into like, oh, they're talking about fucking politics. It clues you in right at the right moment.
Yeah. This is what we were talking about earlier, though. Is it the people that don't get that? Those aren't the people that are going to get the rest of the show. So
the people that don't get it, they might actually Google "this is extremely dangerous to our democracy" and be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" And then see that clip and be like, "Holy shit, they're onto something!" You never know; you might wake some people up.
Well, that actually might be a really great title for that audio drama. Just "This is extremely dangerous to our democracy" by TruTheater, and then when they fucking Google it, that pops up and you're like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like that's kind of what we're going for, because like we're clearly not trying to reach the world, because there's not like there. I mean, there are people. There's still people wearing masks in their cars now. For Christ's sake, that's still a thing. That's still a thing. You know, but what we really want to do.
I was mostly talking about for the newbie truther, I guess you could say, that might be hearing this for the first time and they never heard that clip.
Yeah, well, that's also kind of the idea that we had too, is that having audio drama that is like, hey, because a lot of times when you give somebody this long form discussion, they're not going to listen to it. We people like us, we like listening to long form discussions. We like thinking. Other people, they're like, oh, it's not in a TikTok clip, you know? And but if you show them like a small little comedic, or it doesn't always have to be comedic, because we have a lot of content that's not going to be comedic. It's going to be heavy. We're going to have horror. We're going to have mystery, thrillers, all kinds of different stuff. We're not interested in just comedy. I mean, we clearly knew that we had to have a comedy for your show, because it would make zero sense for us to have some kind of thriller, and then also we did that on, and then Joe's out there making fart noises. It just would make no sense.
Well, the thing is,
it would just make no sense. So that's why we had your show as a comedy. But when we have other shows that are going to be very like intense, it's something you might be able to like people that are in our community. If you have family members or something, it's like, hey, check this out, and you could show that to them, and it's entertaining because people's minds work in story. They don't work in lecture. They don't work in berating them with facts and figures. We work with narrative. And so when they hear something that may have a narrative to it, that's going to kind of be like, oh, that's kind of how I didn't see it that way. And because it paints a new picture, a new story, that's kind of what we want to also give to this community is like, hey, you got that family at your Thanksgiving dinner that thinks you're nuts. Let them listen to this audio drama real quick. It's like 15 minutes.
I feel in a lot of ways, even this episode. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say.
All I was saying was I really it and it sounds crazy, but I really feel like a lot of this episode I really kind of almost pulled out of the ether because after I wrote it and especially after I edited it, I was like, this is an absolute perfect allegory for the entire world as a whole. And I didn't even realize it to the extent it was until I wrote it. And even there's so many elements that were in it that were just kind of like, like I came up with the Eye of Illuminot.
Right.
It wasn't until I even got to that scene I came up with it being an asshole. Seriously, it wasn't pre-thought. It got to that point and I was like, well, why don't I just make it a big asshole?
Because it is an asshole.
And it was like it
organic like that is perfect. That's what you have to continue doing. Don't worry about what anybody says or thinks. If you feel that way when you're putting it out there, people are going to love it. Honestly, we heard it, and not even our episode. Joe and I listened to your first episode, the one that you guys did just together, and we absolutely loved it. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be huge. This is a big deal. Not just because people are going to be able to create it and be in it and say, I'm in this. This is great. But they can show it to people like you're saying and say, check this out. It's really cool. It's entertaining. Whether you're on a long drive or you're just hanging out at work or whatever, it's super interesting and fun to hear the conspiracies of our time put forth in a narrative, in a story, like you guys are saying, instead of being truth bombed with fear porn all the time, like bam, 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 baby's blood. And, there's no reason for that. So it's fun to put it in a story. It helps out.
Well, I also think that you guys are going to have a lot of people that work backwards. You're going to end up having people that they hit on a few episodes and they're like, gay, and then they move on. And then what they're going to do is they're going to come to a podcast that has collaborated with you or that literally is explaining the way that we do on our podcast, the exact narrative. And it's going to register something like, fuck, what was that audio drama show? I feel like they were talking, and they're going to go back to it, and then it's going to make sense. So in Josh, in your original question of, maybe for the baby truther, it's like, that's going to happen. They're going to find your show. They're going to listen to it and they're going to go, I thought, why is this in the truther fucking section? They're going to go and they're going to explore, and then they're going to go, oh, I get it now. And they're going to go back and listen to it, and they'll have a whole different
musical
appreciation.
of the truther section.
Right.
What's the
musical of the truther section?
Yeah.
It'd be like conspiracy musical.
Exactly. It's going to be like that a little bit. Because at first I was like, wait, what? Because we couldn't find you guys on anything except for Audible. And I wasn't sure if that was really your podcast. And then we had to look it up. We're like, are they saying true? So super funny. Again, call back to your very first episode. I'm like, are they saying TruTheater or TruTheater? What are they fucking saying? And then you guys were like, it's both. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I guess we have but I bet a lot of people are going to do that for real.
Oh yeah. Well, it'll take a bit the audience to get a little bit of a learning curve on it, but in a way that kind of keeps us, it keeps us from being accidentally found by a bunch of people we don't care who have to listen to it anyways. Yeah. It's like we want the people who want to listen to it listening to it, and they're going to find us.
That'll happen on its own.
Absolutely.
Well, that's actually why we kind of wanted to contact y'all, because it's like I know that your audience is the kind of audience that we want. We want the kind of audience that's like, they're not offended by much, and they're probably pretty smart. You know, so like that's
Yeah.
ideal.
Probably it's questionable,
Huge
but probably.
compliment. I can't believe that's our audience. I'm actually complimented by our audience.
Mhm.
When we get people who come on, I'm like, wow, they're just commenting on our show. And I'm like, wow, they're so well spoken. Then they'll go off on a tangent in the chat feed. And we're like, I'm so proud that people want to listen to us who are
There are
intelligent,
some that are
well
not so
spoken,
smart.
but
I've
they
talked to
also
them.
like fart noises. That's a hard fucking demographic to find. I will say.
It really is.
Come on.
It really is. Yeah.
That's why the Eye of Illuminot plopped right in the middle of there was just fuck, dude. The visual that went into my head was it was graphic.
Did you?
Yeah, let me tell you something. Audio drama is a powerful thing. I'm serious. It's like forget TV and stuff. It's like you can watch someone TV and what you see is what you get. With audio drama, it's like if your imagination is that fucked up, you can come up with some fucked up shit.
You can also come aboard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all weren't allowed to watch TV when we were little. We had to read books and picture that shit in our head. So an audio drama is like having a book read to you, but you still have to use your imagination, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so we want it to where people can, do stuff and listen to it. That's the main reason why I've always loved main reason I always loved audio drama, because I'm kind of I have to kind of be doing something all the time. He makes fun of me all the time. I always have to be doing something. If I'm just sitting there, I go a little crazy. So if I'm watching TV, just staring at a screen, my knee starts shaking, and I'm like, I gotta get up.
Well, I can't watch TV either. I mean, like I have to. We both are either if we're entertaining, we're gonna listen to audio drama, or we're gonna listen to podcasts.
Yeah,
it's like even if I'm pacing, I can't sit there and stare at a screen. Like we're staring at a screen now because we're talking to you. But it's like
it's different though. It's a conversation, it's a back and forth. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's like when this show comes out, we're not going to have any screens because we want people to get away from their freaking screens, walk around, listen, do something else. Do something else. It's like it's so crazy. It's like the most annoying thing to me. It's like people watching stuff on YouTube all day. It's like what? Stop doing that. It's so annoying.
I'm gonna go on a wild guess here, and I might be completely off. Joe and I have only mentioned it a couple times on the show. Knowing your background now, knowing your love of audio drama, did you guys happen to get raised listening to Adventures in Odyssey?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I actually have I'm an audio drama hoarder as well, and I never listen to them, but I have them. All of them on my hard drive.
Yeah.
Will I ever listen to them again? I don't know.
We grew up with
them.
my mom every Saturday morning taking a fucking cassette tape and recording the radio station that little half-hour segment would be on. We weren't allowed to listen to it until our car ride up to church because they took us to a church that was an hour and 15 minutes away for 3 fucking years. And so Jesus is right.
Literally, Jesus.
So we would listen to that on the way up, as well as Down Gilead Lane, which is a whole other audio drama. Not nearly as well known and stuff, but I just put those two together when you guys said you guys love audio drama, and you guys, I could tell just based on your age, your guys' raising, I'm like, I have a fucking feeling that they listen to that gay shit too.
Yeah,
that was a great show. Go fuck yourself. That was a great show.
Well, not to be that actually to be that asshole. I gotta go.
Yeah, we actually probably need to get going too. My kid, we're actually recording in my bedroom, and my 6-year-old.
This wouldn't be an interview with you if Ben didn't say he has to go.
Not to disappoint.
I'm honored that you got to finally say, okay, we pushed it. Ben's got to go. Let's end the show.
Yep, I'm hitting my done button.
Oh, I'm not going to give spoilers, but that general thing we were just talking about was my favorite part of the whole audio.
It
not
was
really a
mentioned
spoiler.
it in the script.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever listened to our show, they know it happens every show. So
every
not
show.
really.
Ben's got to go to work. Ben's got to go to work.
Yeah,
he's got to get up early in the morning. Sorry, guys.
Which reminds me, one last thing we're gonna say before we get off of here. We are there's actually a couple of small little edits I'm gonna put in that you guys haven't heard yet. They're not big, they're just little tiny ones. But I just want to let all the listeners, you guys are gonna get it for free, but I'm letting all the listeners know that what we're gonna be starting to do is we're gonna be putting the entire audio drama uninterrupted complete as its own file, and we're basically going to be selling it for $1. We're not trying to get rich, but it's going to be $1. Go to our website. You get the whole episode without us talking for the next hour, and it's just the audio drama. And we're going to be selling them for $1. And yeah, you can be a total asshole and figure out that, hey, I can just get an MP3 splitter and cut it together and just make it myself, and I can do that for free. But it's a fucking $1, and it's mostly to help us out a little bit, to nothing else, to pay for our URL for another month. And we're doing that also so if people want to, like what Ben was saying, you want to start having those little truth bombs that you want to hand out to people. Give them an audio drama, say, hey, we were in this, and they can be like, that was really entertaining, not realizing that they're getting an entire world education in a stupid little 20-minute audio drama that's humorous, at least in my opinion. So so yeah, like I said, go when this airs, you can go on our website. You can, like I said, download just the audio drama as it is. And you won't have to listen to us if you don't want to, but if you do, awesome. That's kind of but you'll get more of the backstory if you listen to the whole show. But if you just want the audio drama, go on there. We're going to be having it.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of feels like, because this is our first interview, like we're on your show.
That's what it feels. It feels like we're on your show.
Feels like we're on your show.
You're on our show. So when I'm announcing things, I'm like, well, I'm kind of interrupting. No, it's like, this is my show.
No, this is the show. Yeah. We're just used to it, and we're excited to talk to you guys too. I mean, we're huge fans of what you're trying to do. We all think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, as soon as we, I think Josh left the message for Joe, and we were like, when he played it, I was like, this is the best idea ever. And all three of us agreed. It was absolutely fantastic. Everyone, we reached out to so many people we knew, and they were like, this is amazing.
I was going to ask you that. Have you received any emails yet?
I got one from Janet. I've been corresponding with Janet quite a bit, and she's fantastic.
I'm halfway in the middle of writing.
We're halfway in the middle of writing her radio drama right now.
Nice. Well, everyone we talked to thought it was amazing. So even if they're not willing to put themselves out there,
that's the thing. I think after we get on this show with you, like I think people are going to kind of, after they hear our heroes in an enchanted land, after they hear that, and then they hear us talking to you, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I get it now," and they're gonna be like, "Okay, let's freaking go on."
That's perfect. That's how we are. We're like the bridge between funny and absolutely insane, crazy stuff.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better, especially when we start getting more people involved. Especially when we get people that are better writers than me. I consider myself okay. There's people that are way better writers than I am, and don't flatter me. It's the truth. There are some mad good writers out there, and that's the people we're looking for. And when this thing starts blowing up, we're going to be making stuff that it's going to knock the socks off of everybody.
And that's another point we want to make, is I actually have been collaborating with other audio drama websites that I guarantee you 99% of all of your listeners, or everybody else of our listeners, will not know. Like, it's the old OGs of audio drama. Like, so, but there are shows that are so damn good that it will literally change the way you see the world. Like, and so I've contacted some of them. I'm like, can we please just to introduce some of this stuff to our community, some of the really amazing 20-30 minute shows from your company, and they've been extremely open to it. They're like, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're having to be really honest about what kind of show we are. We don't want to be like, tricking them into realizing, well, we didn't agree to this, and then they find out we're talking about all kinds of stuff.
Because we are not going to be politically correct. We are not going to be.
That goes hand in hand with not giving a shit.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Ben. There's so many people who are going to be so on board with that you might not even know. Just go for it.
I'm aware of that, but it's more like the other companies. If we post their audio drama, and all of a sudden it's like we're talking about something like, oh, what is the Earth flat? Well, we don't like that shit. You know, we don't want to talk about like we don't want our arm job. I told him I was like, we talk about everything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you know if we post your show on our freaking stuff.
In fiction format, though, it's not like you're promoting it as fact.
Right, no, but still, thespians are weird.
Yes, lesbians are weird. I agree.
Thespians are weird.
I mean, I get it. I get where they're coming from as a male, but
yeah. Well, I don't think people forgot that Ben has to go.
Oh, right, Ben. Sorry.
So
Ben's
gotta
go. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
you guys. I'm looking forward to this fucking show. I love it.
But yeah, no, it's been absolutely great and an honor to have you guys on, and thank you so much for being a part of the audio drama. It was
so much fun.
It was almost a dream come true. I've been listening to it. I said, well, can't say enough. We've been listening to this stuff my whole life, and to actually get my hands dirty and make one was euphoric. It really was.
It was a lot of fun.
I loved every second of it. And I can't thank you enough for being part of it. I really hope and I believe that you guys will be a part of it again. And
just
we'll
keep that
fun.
passion, and as long as you don't give a shit what other people think, you'll find happiness and meaning in doing it. So don't worry about who's listening, how many, this, that, and the other, whether they like it or not. As long as you keep that fire for what you want to do, it doesn't matter who gauges the success, it will be.
Right.
We only cared what you think, Ben. Everybody else can fuck off.
Yeah. It's an evil lair.
Fuck off.
Right.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Love you guys.
Thank you so much. All right. You guys have a good one.
This has been awesome.
Yep.
TruTheater Radio, y'all.
.com. Go check it out. Get the episode.
That was a close one.
For reals. And as far as epic quests go, this has by far been my first.
I couldn't be more proud of the both of you and honored to consider you as friends.
Together, all 3-letter names.
Together, 3 syllables.
Together,
Badass!
Oh my god, corny laughter is hard, guys. All right, whatever. Figure it out.
A few days later, our heroes are granted a meeting with the king of the realm.
Sup, guys? What can I do you for?
We have come to present to you the powerful baseball bat of legend.
Woohoo! My old man gave me super secret knowledge about the baseball bat.
But I just always thought it was a myth.
You're the freaking king in a fairy tale. And even you thought the bat was made up.
Hey, that shit coming from the mainstream media is powerful stuff.
You can't possibly know how accurate that statement is.
Come again?
Ugh, never mind.
What was the super secret knowledge your pops told you about the bat?
I guess seeing as you brought me the baseball bat that I didn't think existed, I'll tell you. My dad beat me day and night until I memorized the prophecy perfectly. And I think it goes a little something like this. For 100 years while Medea would deceive, the Eye of Illuminot would be defeated by 3. Then the baseball bat would be brought as a scepter to the king. And all the people would dance and sing. But the bat would have no power until one of the 3 gave it a name, because just baseball bat is kind of lame. But the name could not be given by the 2 that have a dick. It could only be given by the hot chick. And once she decided and the name is said, upon the bat she must write the name in red.
Pretty straightforward for a prophecy.
That could only be talking about Jen.
I don't have any idea of what to name it.
But you must give it a name.
Would it help if I said I was legitimately into you?
Yeah, it would. Someone, give me a red Sharpie.
In big bold letters, Jen wrote the words she used to describe the bat when she first saw it. A memory triggered by Joe's awkward confession of romantic feelings for Jen. The name she gave it was one single word: legit. The king then raised the bat to full height and declared,
Behold, the legit bat. It's so legit, it will not quit.
Just then, the legit bat glowed with the brightness of the sun, and its power filled the hearts and minds of all the people. The mainstream of Badia was cleared of shitwater. Everyone unveiled their faces, for they no longer feared invisible plagues, and men no longer chopped their dicks off. Ben, Joe, and Jen were loved by all the people. But as for Joe and Jen, the only love that mattered was the love that glowed for each other.
Well, guys, I'd love to stick around, but I gotta get going. I got work in the morning. Legit Bat has saved the realm, and now we live in peace. So you think we should get married or something?
Only if you have your own legit bat.
But we already gave the Legit Bat to... Oh, right.
Joe and the Baseball Bat of Legend is a TruTheater radio production. Featured in the cast were Joe Hodgson of the Legit Bat Podcast as himself, Ben Hodgson of the Legit Bat Podcast as himself, Jen Hodgson from the Legit Bat Podcast as herself, Joshua James Earl as the narrator, Jonah Earl as the village elder, King Anthony aka Tonis, and the cult members. Music in this production was promoted by freestockmusic.com. Dragonquest, Medieval Chateau, The Ultimatum, Adventure Beyond, and Townsong by Alexander Nakarada of SerpentSoundStudios.com. Attribution 4.0 International License. Refusing the Ultimatum by Arthur Vinke. Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0 Unported License. This has been a TruTheater radio production, copyright 2022, TruTheater Radio.